Welcome to Echo No More, clear, credible, court-ready documentation in high-conflict parenting. No hype, no legal jargon, no drama. I'm Dr. James. If you're new here, I'm really glad you found this space. This podcast is for protective parents navigating high-conflict custody situations, especially when the other parent is manipulative, emotionally unsafe, or unpredictable. I'm not a lawyer, and this podcast isn't legal advice. What I am is a parent who has lived through this system, and someone whose attorneys over and over again told me the same thing. Your documentation is excellent. They told me it made their job easier. They told me it protected my credibility. And they told me it changed how my case was received. That's why I'm sharing this. Not to teach you how to fight, but how to document calmly, clearly, and in a way courts actually understand. This is parent to parent, calm, grounded, and focused on protecting your child without losing yourself. If pattern tracking is about noticing repetition, then monthly reviews are about regaining perspective. This is where many parents finally breathe again, because instead of reacting to every moment, you step back and ask a different question. What actually happened this month? That question is powerful and surprisingly difficult for parents who've been living in survivor mode. When you're inside high conflict dynamics, time collapses in a way. Everything feels immediate. Yesterday, last week, last month, it all blurs together. Monthly reviews restore time. They help you see what belongs together and what does not. I want to start by saying this clearly. Monthly reviews are not about reliving the month. They are not about rereading everything in detail. They are not about emotional processing. They are about sorting signal from noise. Most parents assume a monthly review means reading every entry and deciding what it means. That's not what courts do. Courts skim. They look for repetition, they look for escalation, they look for consistency. Monthly reviews teach you to read your own records the same way. When I first started doing monthly reviews, I was surprised by two things. First, many things I thought were huge barely showed up when I zoomed out. Second, some patterns I hadn't consciously noticed became obvious immediately. That's the gift of distance. Monthly reviews are where emotion fades and information emerges. Here is the most important thing to understand. Monthly reviews are not where you analyze. They are where you observe. You're not trying to decide who is at fault, why something happened, what this says about the other parent. You are simply asking what repeated, what resolved, what didn't resolve, what escalated, what stabilized. That's it. One of the most protective aspects of monthly reviews is what they allow you to ignore. Parents often worry they'll miss something important if they stop focusing on details. But monthly reviews show you that many things simply don't matter in the long run. Minor irritations, one-off frustrations, moments that felt alarming but didn't repeat. Those things may still matter emotionally, but they don't belong in a long-term legal record. Monthly reviews give you permission to let those go. And letting go is not denial. It's discernment. Another benefit of monthly reviews is that they help you spot change, not just problems. Sometimes patterns improve. Sometimes things stabilize. Sometimes a behavior stops. That matters too. Courts are watching for whether situations are static, improving, or deteriorating. Monthly reviews help you see that clearly. They also help you avoid one of the biggest documentation traps: overcorrecting. When parents review documentation too frequently, weekly or daily, they often overreact to short-term fluctuations. Monthly reviews smooth out those bumps. They remind you that one bad week does not define the entire situation. And that reminder is stabilizing, emotionally and strategically. There is another reason monthly reviews matter, and it's one that parents rarely anticipate. They build internal trust. When you step back regularly and see that your documentation still makes sense, still holds together, still tells a coherent story, you stop doubting yourself as much. You don't feel the need to constantly check, recheck, or justify. That confidence shows up in your writing. And courts notice confidence, not bravado, steadiness. Monthly reviews also help you decide when to stop documenting something. If an issue resolves and stays resolved, you don't need to keep writing about it. If a pattern breaks, you don't need to force it to continue. This protects you from turning documentation into a story that never updates. The truth is allowed to change. Your documentation should change with it. I also want to speak to parents who worry that monthly reviews will be overwhelming. They don't have to be. A monthly review is not a deep dive, it's a scan. You're not reliving events, you're noticing themes. And if you notice yourself becoming emotionally flooded during reviews, that's a sign you're doing too much. Monthly reviews should feel boring and clarifying, not intense. If they feel intense, you're too close. Distance is the point. Monthly reviews are where documentation becomes strategic instead of reactive. They turn records into information, and information is what courts can use. Before we close, I want to remind you of something important. You don't need to document everything, you don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to convince anyone with emotion. Calm documentation is power. If this episode helped you, you will find a full structured system in my guide, Clear, Credible, Court Ready. It's designed to support, not replace, your attorney. And if you want help turning everything you're documenting into something organized and usable, you can visit www.economocoaching.org to download my guide on how to create a clear, court-ready documentation binder. Take what helps, leave what doesn't, and most of all, take care of yourself. I'll see you next week.